Okay, so moving to positions. So we start with 3 positions that we currently have. One being this is the ed tech that we put in for suspension diversion. And Scott Anir talked to TJ, who works with DHHS. That's who funds the position that he's in. And that has been funding this position. And TJ is very confident that the DHHS funds will support this position next year. The other one is 2 positions at the middle school, one that wasn't filled this year, which was a special ed tech 2. As you know, it's always a struggle to get ed techs. And so looking at their caseloads for next year, they feel comfortable, and Brian supports this reduction. The UA ed tech 2, so remember, we're moving the ed tech 3 position that is current into the library position in order for him to have that library position to do a social work position. So Bob and I talked again about this need, and he feels that the UA does not need that ed tech 2 support. Then I had the new class size ed techs. There were 4 identified for classes over 25 students. And so those we have never had. Looking at class sizes, I know principals, teachers, teams work really hard that during direct instruction and in their core courses, that working with resources, they do everything they can to reduce their numbers. So when we say there's 25 in a class, that doesn't always mean there's 25 in the class during core instructional time. So those are on there. We have an unfilled bus driver position that's pretty much been unfilled all year. And talking to Billy, he feels they could go another year without filling that. So that's there. And so that's why that position is here. We have the new maintenance worker. We have the EL technology ed tech 3 position, the new Fairview interventionist, the new Park Avenue interventionist, the new Sherwood Heights interventionist. Then we have the Park Avenue ed tech 3 that was to support student behavior plans for PBIS that we've seen a lot of success in the other buildings. And the Sherwood Heights ed tech 3, those we were adding. And then we've reduced one of our technology instructional coaches. So that's how we reached $1,296,751.
Any questions so far? There's nothing in the chat. Oh, all right. Rose is asking, what was our target to cut? I think it was about 1.3 million.
That is the exact target.
Yeah. Yeah.
Katie, were there any positions that stayed in from the 13 that we originally wanted?
Yes. One stayed in, that was a Sherwood Heights secretary position. So looking at all, we were hoping for Sherwood Heights to have the ed tech 3, the interventionist. When I'm there, the number, having a secretary, an additional secretary there would help monitor some of the needs at that school. So we did leave that position in, and that we thought was very important.
Okay, thank you.
Now switching gears, what we did with your great minds think alike. A lot of items that you saw on our list are also on your list, and some of the items you put out we hadn't put on, and we gave a lot of good consideration to what you did send to us yesterday. So that's why there were some adjustments to our list. So what I did is in blue, I put what we did that is connected to what you stated. Okay. Then I put, and I'll go down this, I put in red what we feel we cannot do. And I'll explain why we can't do them. And then I put in black items that we reviewed and we would not support reducing. And then I put comments that people made. Okay. So that's kind of how I broke it down. So some things that we agreed and that you support and we responded to is that reduction in taking and buying things now based on the savings we know we will see with the COVID-19. So that addressed when people asked about that, around getting the buses back in, about the non-instructional furniture equipment, the musical instruments. All of that would be purchased now with the savings from COVID-19. So remember when I said we were at $1.2 million with that fund balance? We put that extra $200,000 because that's what we anticipated would be probably our savings with COVID-19. There probably is going to be more, but we felt, okay, 200,000. What we're doing is we're taking that and we're using that to purchase these items. Okay. So we're listening to you, and that's why we don't feel comfortable using it in fund balance anymore, because we're going to use it to purchase now. Does that make sense?
It must. There's nothing popping up.
I see nods from the people I can see.
Yeah.
I see nods. We agree. We talked today secondary about the tech ed position, and Tanya Vanessa has been doing a lot of work at EL as part of her role and responsibilities, and they're very pleased with what's been going on with that support for technology for EL. So that position did go on the list. You saw that. Instructional coaches was mentioned, and so you saw that we do have one of our instructional coaches for technology on that. As you know, we say that position. However, that position has been key right now in helping support teachers in remote learning. So our tech coaches have been hard at work getting resources to teachers, helping them with trainings behind the scenes. So, but when you look at all our coaching positions and ranking them in priority, that's where we feel if we have to do one, that's the one that we would do. The other no new positions. So out of all the $504,000 for new positions, we cut $477,059. Okay. The 4 new ed techs need to stay in. So Brian, one was the secretary, but we didn't count the 4 additional ed techs for special ed because to us, that's a savings. So that really was an increase. If we don't do those 4 positions, then I got to go back and raise tuition. Sorry. Thank you, Adam. 2 new ed tech 2 positions. Sorry, he didn't put 4 in, he put 2 in. So those 2 ed tech 2 positions stayed in for the special ed program. That's why Adam is on my right hand here. He's my right hand man.
Yeah.
So then we agree, we lowered the seed money, we lowered the tuition dollars, we reduced the Newsella, we cut the math program, we cut the maintenance position, we reduced the tutor line, and we reduced the sub line. So those are the things that we are in sync with.
Okay.
Unable to do.
Okay. Hang on 1 second, Katie. Do you want to go through the whole thing and then take a peek at the chat, or do you want to stop and take a peek at the chat and see what people are thinking?
Does the chat have to do with what we agree with?
Let's see, city council. I don't know. I'm popping on right now to look. Tutor work extended closures. What was our target to cut? I realize, Pam, I realize we need to cut the budget, but I hate to see teaching positions cut. Was that one? Teaching positions, okay. Pam, I'm going to ask you probably to pop on and just I want to make sure I didn't miss something. I'm not hearing like a classroom teacher position has been cut.
No.
Well, the ed techs. I mean, they are teachers, aren't they?
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I guess it's just the label we're giving them. When I think teaching position, I think classroom teaching, and that's probably just the hat that I wear, right? I think classroom teaching position when I saw teaching position, which is why I wanted you to pop up and elaborate what you were thinking about.
Well, I meant the ed techs.
So the 2 ed tech positions at the middle school, no one is in those positions.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so yeah, that would just be my same concern, is that there's no positions that we're eliminating that somebody is working in now currently, correct?
Well, the instructional coach for technology, there is a person.
Okay.
How many other instructional coaches do we have?
I will show you. I think I have that. Yeah. So you have here's the list. You have an interventionist at the middle school. That's in the general fund. You have an instructional coach at the middle school. That's in general fund. You have a halftime district coach. You have 2 technology coaches. You have a coach at Edward Little High School, 2 interventionists at the elementary. So this is the list. You have a math coaches, 2 math coach positions in the general fund, in intervention. So you can see here's the general fund positions right here.
Okay.
Here, okay. So that's what we have. And they do a lot of things. They don't just work with teachers, they work with students, they work with families, they do PD, they help support administration. They wear a lot of hats. So, and Karen can speak to instructional coaches, right, Karen? You don't just wear one hat, I bet.
No, I wish I did. I wish I did, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the instructional coaches, they're per building, and they follow the principal organizes them and tells them where he needs them and all that.
It works. They work with teachers' needs. Like they'll put out. Why don't we have one? Scott, Anir, will you explain what your coach does?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. So explain what your coach does.
It says instructional coach, but it's also interventionist, full staff PD and facilitation through our PLCs, support teachers on.
Explain PLCs. What's
our
a
professional
PLC?
learning communities. Those are what we have for our early release Wednesdays once a month. So she's kind of coordinating them, supporting them, figuring out what their needs are per department, what they're looking for from a personal and a departmental set of needs, and aligning that with their PDCA. Sharing if I'm looking for how to improve my practice in one area and there's a teacher that has a strength in another area, she brings them together, finds the time, coordinates how all of that happens. She oversees our 9th grade teams so that she's leading grade level meetings weekly. And that's where a lot of the intervention happens, when teachers start sharing what are their significant needs that they're having in classes. Is it a student-based need or a teacher-based need? And so she supports those things. Another big hat that she wears is really in almost like the pre-observation model, when teachers identify what their goals are on their PDCA. Prior to an administrator doing an evaluation, she goes in there and has an opportunity to work with them, give them non-evaluative feedback of what's working, what's not working. That she does, those are walkthroughs. She does lesson planning with teachers, either singularly or by department or by cohorts. And when I say by cohorts, like if our biology teachers, maybe it's not necessarily it's one biology teacher, it's all the biology teachers. And it doesn't necessarily always have to be the entire science department. So she brings them together and does those meetings. She does a lot with the departments, does lesson planning with them.
We run book studies for professional development. We mentor brand new teachers because classroom teachers are in their own classrooms, trying to do the day in and day out of their own classrooms. And what data tells us is that if brand new teachers are not supported well within their first couple of years on the ground, then we lose them. They burn out and they leave if they don't feel like they have a thinking partner. So it's really engaging someone in best practices. And I will be honest, sometimes we are asked to go work with teachers who are sort of teetering on the edge of just not wanting to keep up with some best practices, or teaching 20 years one time. if that kind of helps to make sense. But we're called on for a lot: data analysis, identify some areas where kiddos need some support, and teachers may not always know where to go get that support or how to coordinate that support. And sometimes we are that support. So yeah, there's a lot of hats.
It's a less intrusive model for them to access support from the instructional coach than it would be from an administrator. And that really is semantics and perception, but it plays a big deal in teachers reaching out and accessing help, because it could be something simple or it could be something large.
Yeah.
Okay. Pam, do you want to hear from someone else?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sending out to you this sheet because Brian asked for it. So I'm sending out the sheet I'm going through right now.
And I think in the chat box right now it's all caught up right now.
Yeah, I just read through it. Okay. So I just sent you the sheet that I'm going through right now. So now I got to get back again. Hold on. Where did it go?
And as I'm touching my face, looking at you touching your face, I'm going to tell you to not touch your face, but I'm like, I'm touching my face though. Don't touch your face.
I'm trying not to touch my face.
Oh, we're home. It's okay.
I know. Let me go. I'll wash my hands after. I washed my hands before. Okay. Let's see. I got to go back. Hold on. Because I got out to do the email. So now I've got to bump back in again. Hold on. Okay. All right. So back to this. So in the red, there were questions. And so I'm going to answer why these aren't doable. So stipend staying flat, that is negotiated in the contracts. So the stipends are budget. They got a 10% increase to their stipends. Those stipends hadn't been raised in, oh my gosh, more than, as long as I've been here, which is about 14 years and 13 years in central office, they hadn't been raised. So in the negotiations with teachers contract, that was a 10% increase. Last year, that did not get raised because we're still in negotiations around this. So those cannot be reduced. We were talked about, there were questions, because obviously when you're looking at it, you interpret it one way and we have to look at the numbers. And so we would need more information on looking at tech related software and repair. But some of this is moving things around for coding purposes. So we would have to know directly what you're looking at, because sometimes remember Adam said he's always looking at recoding. So if something wasn't put in one place or the other. Tuition reimbursement, it hasn't ever been that high. So looking at the budget, the current budget is $126,000, and we've already spent $110,000 to date. And I can tell you, I signed some reimbursement. So even though school is closed, people are still doing online classes. So we expect that to be done. And we spent in FY18 $164,000, and last year $148,000. So we don't believe that there's any room to cut there. What's the difference between instructional staff training, professional training? So you can see here that the increase, what you're seeing really was reflective of increases in benefits for assistant administrators. So somebody might have been taking single and now they take family. So some things are adjusted depending on what people select for health coverage. And then PD for dues and fees, that's for staff training, to send them on staff training. And so PD overall was down $2,200 across the budget because we didn't do the PBIS budgeting for the national conference this year. So we feel that that's down and there's no room to cut. Cut the school committee stipends and put the savings towards the school lunch debt. It's in your charter, but if you want to donate what you get paid to offset debt, you're welcome to do that. It would be $5,177.
What is the school lunch debt right now, Katie?
Funny you should say that. If you scroll, the elementary debt right now is at $6,325. Adam, do you know what the total is, including AMS and EL? It's around 10,000.
Okay.
Okay. And we'll talk about that. That's in another area.
Yeah.
We negotiate cleaning contracts. So you can see here, we believe this is really supporting our contracted services. And we asked them to stay at 2% increase, and they've agreed to that. They have not pushed for that. So $1 million, I mean, these are folks. These are people that work in our buildings, around our cleaning services. And when we do have an opening, like a contracted service isn't working, we look to replace that with a custodian position. But it's not always finding people to do that work. So we do a blend of contracted services and custodial staff. So we don't believe we can go back to our contracted service folks and say you need to take less. We risk losing them. We had negotiate new contracts. So, you have food service contract that's expiring. You have 3 contracts next year you'll be negotiating, and you have your teacher's contract. So if you're looking for how to save, that's part of your team's negotiating. Have to talk about how do we save. Your last school committee did an excellent job working to negotiate down health benefit. We used to pay 100%, 95%, and they really worked hard to bring people to 85% and 90%. So they did a lot of work to do a lot of savings. You should be proud that they did a lot to help the contracts. That's the red. And then these are items that were listed that we would not support. But this is going to be your budget. So you all would have to agree whether you support these items or not. And then we would support your decision. One was currently 6 unfilled stipend slot cuts. These are cutting like EL speech debate, EL Nordic skiing assistant. If we may have somebody step forward and want to do EL speech debate, and they wouldn't be able to if we cut this, and same with Nordic ski assistant, we never know what we might have. The Park Avenue chorus was mislisted. Jody Stidel does get that stipend, so we're going to correct that in the budget. Look at the central office admin and combining the assistant superintendent position with the curriculum director position. And we need an honest review of redundancies. Can some central office positions be combined, eliminated, overlapped? We've done a lot of work at central office to be as lean and mean as we can in order to save teaching positions in the past. And I would have to hear from people why they feel there's redundancies. Cut PD travel. If we cut the PD travel, which is $8,675, that means no one goes to any PD next year. That's teachers. That's everybody, except for what's in contracts, which the administrators do have in their contract that every 5 years they can go on a national conference. So we budgeted how many slots are due, and I think it's like 3 to 5 next year. Reduce admin at EL. Do not fill unfilled positions. If you don't do the unfilled positions, you would cut positions like the 2 gifted and talent positions, and they are reimbursable. So when you spend money on gifted and talented, you see that increase in our state subsidy. The EL aspirations position and the Park Avenue classroom position. So these are people who have retired, and we have marked them as unfilled right now because we don't know who will be in those positions next year. Reduce technology. And Peter did want to speak that he's not advocating for 6 iPads per class to be used as centers. If we were to do that, and you direct me to do that, we will have to meet with our vendor and talk about what are the consequences for that. What would we negotiate for that? And so if that is something you actually, everyone supports that, there's more work to do in the next week on what that would look like. And I can do that for next week, or attempt to. Look at tech apps and subscriptions. This is what teachers identify they need. HeadSprout, RazKids, Newsela. Those are all important apps that are used, and that's why buildings have put them in their building budget. Adding $100,000 so that all elementary schools free lunch. If right now it's $6,000 is the debt, I don't see where that would make sense to add $100,000 to the budget. We do have to do bad debt anyway. When a student leaves our district, we need to pay that debt. And that's why we budgeted this year $10,000, correct, Adam? $10,000 to cover paying those debts. And then there were additional comments, keep anything that teachers have identified as needs for their classrooms and cut any new initiatives or trainings. There's no new initiatives in this budget, and teachers have input into this budget. And do not be afraid to walk away or cut anything that does not give us a return on investment. That's one of our filters. It needs to have a strong return on investment.
Okay, so let's visit the chat box, or anyone that has that has any questions. Okay, I think we did the comparison sheet for us to look at. Pam, this is a conversation, I think, this always messes me up. Dave Simpson comes in as Susan Simpson. And for a moment, I think there's somebody I'm not really remembering, and it gives
not my computer, Karen.
I'm like, it's an Alzheimer's moment, Dave. You give me. I'm like, wow, who is this person? Fund a way to fund free lunch. So I think Katie talked about that. Do you want any more questions or clarifications?
I did put the $100,000 because I believe 2 weeks ago when we had the last budget meeting I was at, that's the number that was thrown out to provide the free lunch to K through 6. I thought it was an additional 100,000.
Yeah,
that's where I came up with that number.
No, you were correct.
Okay. So I also, and I think that one of the other ones Rose was asking about was wondering about state support for unpaid food debt.
No.
So I have another kind of out of the box idea, and maybe this will work. I'm sure I sent Adam the email earlier, probably at like 5:00. So I know there's no information on it. But in Augusta, teachers have the option to opt in to a program where in their pay, the cents of their paycheck is donated to a fund that can be used for whatever is deemed. And I think maybe figuring out a way to come up with an option like that. And if people want to do it, they could donate to like paying up like lunch fund, like the lunch debt fund.
So you mean if I get like in my check, it's whatever, and it's 91 cents. So you're saying take the the 91 cents would just off and go.
Yeah. Huh. Where somebody doesn't miss less than $1 a paycheck, it's not, significant. And it would be going to a good cause, again, for those folks that can't afford it, that it would be helping to pay off that debt.
Okay. I
see. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, I see this as a Katie. Katie needs, or her staff need to really. Think
and I'm
about
sure
this.
that this is like a bigger, idea. But I think that maybe we should reach out to Augusta and see what they do, and see if it's not something just for food, but somewhere that we can use this for, that everybody can agree it's a good way to spend, however much money.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't we can absolutely check with Augusta.
Yeah.
I wrote it down.
Yeah.
So I feel like we've talked about positive behavior support several times, about how supportive it was. So, and I also explained that there isn't a lot in the budget around positive behavior support. There are a couple of, positions that support student behavior in response to interventions type work. Celeste, can you talk about positive behavior intervention supports at Fairview?
Sure. I know that before we started, our staff had to take a survey because we needed to make sure we had buy-in. And so my staff, we have, I would say, complete buy-in now. It's working well. We set goals around the students set their goals, the teachers set goals. We have school-wide goals. And the kids are doing really well. I think the teachers feel supported. We do check-ins. We check and adjust as a staff often. We have a PBIS team. When I asked for members to be on the team as a voluntary position, not paid, I think I have at least, 12, 13 people that sit on my team. Those are all teachers who come in early to be a part of the team. They find that it's obviously value added or they wouldn't be putting their time in. So it's making a difference. The kids buy in. And yeah, it's going well. I think that the teachers feel supported because we have a pretty consistent framework now rather than everybody kind of just doing their own thing. So it's a consistent framework. We build it as a staff. We check it as a staff. We adjust it as a staff. So they have input. It's not something that I make them do or that I create or Stephanie creates and then we give it to them. So it's really collaborative and we have buy-in at Fairview and we're liking it. It's going well. The kids love it. One of my teachers is actually using our little ticket system as part of the work he's doing with our continuous learning, even while we're away from school. So kids like it.
Dave Simpson's asking, I think he quoted you, it's making a difference. And he's asking, could you offer any specifics? Thank you. I think you
Sure. Before, I would say that depending on, we just had a hodgepodge of plans teachers were using. So depending on the teacher, depended on whether kids got kicked out of class or asked to go to the office. Based on, I would just say maybe their tolerance or what they believed to be good reasons. Our office referrals are down. We're tracking our office referrals. And so now we're looking at specific data that we collect through PBIS and we have meetings with teachers regarding, specific students and we build plans to help those students based on our data. So we have students that are on check-in and check-out. And so we look at that monthly as a team. And then we are able to specifically work with the teacher and the student to set goals. The kids check in at the beginning of the day. They check out at the end of the day with a mentor, someone other than a teacher. So it's a nice connection for them. Some kids will ask our older kids to choose who they want. So a lot of kids will choose a former teacher that they had that they don't get to see, but they had a good connection with. It's kind of like their personal cheerleader. And we see kids coming off those plans so they earn points. They keep track of their sheets. We keep track of their sheets. So I'd say our office referrals are down rather. And if nothing else, we're being more consistent. So kids aren't being sent to the office because they didn't do their spelling homework. We're looking for, we're charting those behaviors, those kinds of incidents, and then giving them other alternatives.
I just grabbed the screen. So every month at E-Team meetings, at our secondary meetings, we put in data. So you can see here's our office referral rates, because that's what we're monitoring around reducing our office referral rates. Because the big thing with our work with PBIS is students can't learn if they're not in the classroom. And they can't learn in classrooms where there aren't consistency in routines and distractions from other students. So it's a very tiered approach that the classroom teacher is working hard to give positive feedback to students so that they are learning, and then they have check-in and check-out. So you can see East Auburn's data here, Fairview's data from November to December. Park Avenues, Sherwood Heights, Waltons, Washburns. So we track that just like we track chronically absent and we track attendance rates. So we do have data. All of our schools use Swiss, which is a PBIS tool where data is put in on when students are referred or have a behavior incident. It goes into the Swiss. So I certainly can get you the Swiss data regarding our work with office referrals.
I think that was helpful. Yeah, and I think the teachers like Swiss because before they had to fill out hand forms when they sent kids to the office. Swiss it's easy. It has drop-down menus. They can get it quickly, and they just have to do those by like the end of the day, so they don't have to do it right on the spot, so they can continue teaching. So that's been an added bonus, I think.
Okay. Pam Hart's asking, thank you, Celeste. And Pam Hart's asking, is this addressing physical behavior issues and how those are dealt with? And she's also asking, what tier are we on? Meaning, I think that's an implementation question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you want, well, the tier, every school gets an evaluation about how are they doing with their implementation. Jennifer Butterworth and Jillian Close go around and they do an evaluation, and then the school does a plan. So some schools are working still on tier 1. For example, they'll go into classrooms. How many times is a teacher giving a positive comment to a student? That's one example. How well are the routines that the students are following being implemented? Then those schools that are really strong in their tier 1 are working on tier 2. And those are kids, that's that check in and check out that you hear a lot about. And I would say Washburn has been doing this work the longest. So they're probably, they have tier 1, tier 2, and have slowly been working on tier 3 identification. But it's really the physical, the crisis teams are all trained annually on how to support students having difficulty, especially with physical, and how they bring crisis teams together, clearing rooms. We still do the clearing the room, which is so that the students don't need to see what's happening and the student who's struggling can have the support they need. So we work very much hand in hand with teams of crisis teams, trainings for our staff. And so that's how that's all working.
Okay. Let's see I don't think we've missed anything. Brian Belknap, thank you for the due diligence on working through the various items, cross-checking with your list of things you felt could come out. Although prioritized accordingly, are there items you want us to really consider putting back in?
Oh, that's a loaded question, Brian.
Yeah, it's a good one. Put it all back in, right? We want to put it all back in, but
I mean, I think what the challenge is I think people, and they could speak for themselves. I think if we start getting into which current position would be reduced for a new position, I think we're then we need to respect the needs of every school. It's hard when you have 10 schools and you're trying to make sure they have the resources they need. And we know they don't have all the resources they need. That's why we put in those positions. So I would hate to say I want this position and then someone says, well, then why don't you reduce this position? Mm-hmm. So getting into what's more valuable than another position, they're all valuable in what they offer. So I do recognize that the city council is allowing an increase to the local for education. And I want to applaud them for that, for recognizing the need for increase. So I also want to respect that, that to start to increase our budget because we have high needs. So I think we put the list together that we feel best holds what we believe we can live with, I suppose. Live with in these tough times.
Thank you.
And hopefully, next year, if you get additional funds, you know what we need. You've got it right here. You can say, wow, we've already got it.
Okay. Any other questions people are wondering about?
In my mind,
Comments?
I can't cut a position that somebody is currently in. Like, that's not fair. That's not right. They're doing a job. They have a purpose. So I would want to add in. So personally, I would want to add those positions back in.
So the only position right now is the technology integration coach.
Yeah, I would not want to cut that position specifically because somebody is in it and they do have a purpose, especially with what we're dealing with right now.
So keeping in mind what we were directed from City Council the other night, then Katie's coming in, the superintendent's budget is coming in exactly where City Council has asked us to come in. So where then, Rose, are you thinking about that money and that positions have to come, the money for that position would have to come from somewhere?
What impact would it be to reduce school budgets by, or like building budgets by like 5.5%? Or instead of having us go through and like nickel and dime that?
Well, if you're saying, I think what I'm hearing you say, Rose, and if there's an agreement, I mean, I don't know if everyone agrees. We'd have to take
I don't know. I'm just trying to solve a
you want us to find $66,541.
Is that is how much that person makes?
That's
in the cost of an unfilled position. This person is sliding.
Right.
Most likely sliding.
So what we did is that person, because that person was told they were on the list tonight. Okay, we would put that person in an open position. So we're anticipating having openings. And so our hope is that person would move into an open position. So that's not the total of this person.
Okay, so this person will have a job.
Our hope is they would have a job. Yes. I mean, if she wants it. Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But but we put in 66,541, you would say to us, could you go back and next week give us what you would do to bring that 66,541 in?
Okay.
Karen.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, it's Faith. Can you just speak to, and remind me if I missed something, but as far as just when we got the list about the recommendations from the school committee where to cut the budget, how was that list obtained?
People were just at our last meeting when we met all together, workshop. People were just asked to email either myself or Katie with budget thoughts.
Okay.
So I compiled whatever anyone sent my way, and I just put it on there. And I know other school committee members reached out to either Adam or reached out to Katie with their thoughts too.
Okay. Just when I received that document, that was a lot of those suggestions were really hard for me to understand where that came from. And I just
different school committee members. I just populated, and a lot of times I just cut and paste from an email they might have sent me and just populated it all on one document.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I must have missed the direction to email those, because I just want to be clear that none of those were my suggestions.
Yeah.
I know for a lot of administrators and a lot of teachers and a lot of people out there, those were probably very hard to read.
Yeah. It was just an idea. Just populate your ideas. Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that there's no talk. I guess I'm concerned where, and again, I apologize if I missed that memo, but I've just had the sense that there's a lot of talk going on behind the scenes, and some board members aren't being transparent. And I personally feel left out of the loop. I know, but that's how I'm feeling. And I just don't think this is a good way to conduct business, and having separate side talks or, during meetings or outside of meetings. I just want to make sure that we all maintain.
Katie said, just if you think about your thoughts, think about where you want to go, and you can reach out to either Karen or myself through whatever means you find. And so
So nobody directly reached out to members and asked them specifically, do they want to add anything to the list? Nothing like that.
Not that I know of. I have a list I just populated a list of emails.
Okay, thank you.
I can only speak for myself, though, right?
No, and that's what I'm just,
Yeah.
and where you're the chair, I'm just wondering, I was just taken back by the suggestion. So I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page and being transparent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll be transparent that I can't remember specifically what I put on that list, but I can say that it was around reducing the size of administration to make sure that we maintain our teachers and ed techs.
Okay.
And I also still would like to see us fund free lunch for K through 6.
Okay, and just to speak on, and Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know we had discussed, Dave, a couple of years ago, or a year ago, having free lunch across the board, just, because we're running into problems with lunch balances not being paid and people not filling out the forms. And the way Paula described it, it's all about the formula, and we get less reimbursement if we did that. Is that correct, Adam? Do you remember? I believe you were at the meeting.
So if we looked at adding $100,000 to the budget to fund free lunch for all at East Auburn and Fairview. That would that 100,000 essentially would be replacing all of those paid meals that we sell every day. And I don't believe we'd receive less subsidy. This is simply a lost revenue source that would have to be made up in kind by the general fund.
Okay, so that's right, because the paid meals per the state, the allotted number of paid meals,
right.
That $100,000 would basically, we'd be paying that instead of getting those paid by the state.
Right.
Correct?
So whether we pay for the meal or the parent pays, we would receive the same amount of reimbursement on a meal that didn't qualify for free and reduced lunch.
Right. That's what I remember. Okay. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I knew there was something that we had talked about that.
We also had Chris Piercy and Paula check around, and districts like us do this type of thing. Those who qualify receive it, and those who don't receive it. We're not aware, not that it makes it right or wrong, we're not aware of another district who pays for schools that would not qualify.
Okay. I mean, as we all feel the same way, we want kids to be fed, and that's what we're doing. It's just a hard thing to balance, these unpaid lunch balances and the schools that don't qualify for Title I. But I just wanted to clarify that piece there that Dave had pointed out.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? So seeing none or hearing none, and the chat is empty as of this. The chat is completely empty as of this point. I think we've gone through the entire point. I think I want to commend everyone in the school department for really, looking and making some really hard decisions. And I think, I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what Faith said, that no part of this was a fun thing to think about. Where reductions needed to happen. I not for one moment was this a thrilling thing to have to go through. But I think what it really should speak to is that, this is a school committee who is really committed to keeping people in their positions, because we know there's not one, there are not expendable people that are in these classrooms day in and day out, and feeding our kids and everything else that everything that it takes to run a school department, every staff member, every human being that it takes to run these positions. And I think, I started this meeting off by really talking about some fiduciary responsibilities that we have to the taxpayers, and really making sure that we are providing the best we can. So I want to commend you, Katie, and all of your people who really had to take a hard look at this, and in order to come in where we needed to come in. So, I think you hit the number where the city was asking us, and I keep looking over at it. It's on the, it's on the side over here. And I know other people would like to offer up other ways, like David, funding lunch, all of those different things that we would like to add in. I just, and maybe Brian Carrier, maybe you can speak to this. I want to be mindful of really what our non-binding chart was to really think about.
Well, we were looking at the overall, and the driving force behind this is, yes, we would love to fund the school for what we think the needs are, but we also have to balance that with what we're going to be looking at for tax revenue this next year. And I think that Katie and her staff has done a very good job of coming back and looking at what the city has asked for, and really worked it in to see that we could get to that point. I won't speak for the whole council insofar as what they may be looking for at the meeting next week. But I think that we have done a really good job here tonight of actually taking a look at what we can really afford to do and making it look like it'll work for the school.
I do as well. So at this point, Katie, I'm not hearing, yes, I would, really love to add in the few things that I've got talked about tonight, but I don't know at what expense or what area that could be funded through. So you would know that, your staff would know that. So maybe just kind of keeping in the back of your mind some of the things that, funding lunch, or that David talked about, or, a position or two, an ed tech position or two that, that can be added in. But in what I'm hearing, and I want to make sure that I'm hearing this correctly, is that other than the tech coach, that really all class sizes are still 25 or less, and we are not cutting classroom teaching positions. We are not cutting, no one's being riffed at this point, other than, okay. And that's really what I was thinking about. I think it's smart of you to be thinking about funding some of the things that were on the list through the COVID-19 savings, which, I think is a really fiscally responsible move on your part as well. So at this point, sorry,
can I just, so I also sent Adam a list of things for the COVID-19 savings and stuff. And I don't know if you got it, Adam.
He did.
You did? Okay. So that was my big thing, is trying to get savings in that so that we could use it towards the general fund for next year. I know we have to put that in the general fund. Is there a way that we can use some of that money towards positions, or no?
So no, because once the fiscal year is over, that money is essentially gone, and money we haven't spent rolls into fund balance. So as we discussed last time, really the only way to quote unquote use it next year would be to increase use of fund balance, which brings down the local tax share, but it doesn't, add anything into your budget. So the other way that Katie and I have talked a lot about the last couple of days to try to utilize those savings is to purchase things now. And so those are really things that we could physically have in our hands before June 30th. So we looked at all the instructional equipment, and I'm going to go through and try to really nail down exactly which lines will take that $174,000 from. But we'll certainly start with all of those pieces of instructional equipment, all of the classroom furniture, though, we'll look to start purchasing those items now. And so by doing that, we were able to keep the buses in. So in essence, by trying to be a little creative, that's how we use some of those funds toward next year. But as Katie said, you can't prepay things like salaries, contracted support, things like that. Those have to be charged to the year in which you use them. So that does limit sort of some of our options to those physical goods that we could buy.
Well, I'm glad we can use the money. I mean, as terrible as this all is, that we have to be home, at least we can use some of that money towards something good. So that's good. Thank you.
Right. We're trying to make as much lemonade as we can out of all these lemons that we're seeing.
And thanks for your patience, because I am not a money person, and I don't even know how to do an Excel sheet. So I sent you that.
No worries. I just was able to briefly open it, and it looked to me like what you were doing was identifying lines you think maybe in this year we might have savings. Was that right? Okay.
Yes.
So I'll certainly take a look at that.
Like with the field trips, because we're not going to be doing field trips, and just things like that. And again, there may be some in there that are completely we can't save, but it was kind of like at a glance of looking where we could maybe
Sure.
save, so we could,
Yeah, and I know Rose had asked, could you get the data here as we sort of identify the savings? And certainly that's something I'm going to start on, and I started today to try to list some of those things out. Obviously, a lot of it is still unknown. Trying to make some educated assumptions this morning, but even in, what could we start saving on heat? And I've started to talk to Billy about that. And, so we're really starting to look at all that, and we'll certainly start putting those numbers together and keep you all updated as we move forward here as to what we think that's looking like.
For me, I just think the thing was that I wanted to identify what line items where we need to watch, and then, at the end of the school year, reconcile them and just see what it actually was. I know it's not going to be impactful, but I still do want to track it.
Right. And certainly we'll track everything as we go. The key here is we've got to try to identify the savings early enough to go through our purchase process and purchase the items and have them in our hands before the end of the fiscal year, because that's the only way we can do that. So we've got to get started on it. Obviously, I went right to substitute lines, field trips.
Yeah.
So trying not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but also start planning where that might be and try to be proactive about using those funds as best we can.
That's right, because there will be no substitutes. Yeah, that's a good point.
And there's the trips and all that. But
how much is left in the sub line now?
So I did some quick math this morning, and obviously if nothing changes, we probably have about 150,000 left in all of those sub lines.
Yeah.
Okay.
Katie, I had one quick question to just touch base with you. Did you say that you were going to be looking at the technology contracts to just see what would happen if we were moving from one area to another with them?
You're going to have to, yeah, I know.
Oh, Adam.
I was doing, no, the two big contracts are for the iPads at the elementary level and teacher. So I wouldn't think you'd want to touch the teacher laptops. So I'm more than willing to, by next Wednesday, tell you what the impact would be changing the lease. I guess I would have to, this is hard in these kind of things, whether everybody agrees that you want to reduce the number of iPads.
I'm just not so much. I just would want to know what would it cost us? Is it going to be, would there be another cost to it other than it? If we change the contract.
Well, I think one would take the equipment away because we won't have paid for it. Right. So we're breaking a lease. But I can find out all the details on what that would look like and what the impact would be.
Katie, this is Shelley. I just have one thing. When you're talking about the iPad reduction, it occurs to me that we use those devices to give the state assessment. So we would also need to make sure that whatever we did, there were still enough devices in elementary for us to do our required assessments.
I'd make another point to that too, if I may. We actually paid additional payments at the beginning of this lease, so we actually have more equity than we would if we just paid on schedule. So if we were to just turn those in, we essentially would lose all of that equity. And it would also cause us harm on our credit rating because we'd be breaking a lease.
Okay. Any other questions about tech?
Have we heard anything about the MLTI? Has that, wasn't there information that we were waiting on hearing?
I don't think that impacts this budget right now. I think we're trying to really let's keep our focus on this budget and what's happening with this budget right here. I don't think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Peter or Katie, but I'm not sure how that impacts this budget.
So the buyout of the laptops that we currently have at the high school is in the budget.
Okay.
But there will be nothing from the state that will change that between now and next school year. So in order to have laptops at the high school next year, we need to have that in the budget.
Okay. Right. This one is, I think, a question for you, Katie. Dave popped a question about, is rec department able to continue with the football program with the school removing it from the 21 budget? And I know middle school football was never funded by the Auburn School Department. So is the rec department expecting that the Auburn School Department was going to pick that up? And did they drop it from their budget? I think is what I'm reading into that question.
I don't.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, that's what
Okay.
I'm saying. I have to speak to the rec department.
Okay. All right. Any other questions at this time? All right. So going forward, Katie, walk us through what really happens if I'm hearing some suggestions, some things that we would like to, not to have to pull out. At this point, I'm not hearing from any school committee member that is asking for further reductions in any areas. Am I? If I'm missing anything, please correct me. But I think we've come in right where the city's has asked us to come in.
I would love us if, and I might be alone in this, so I don't want to, hold up the process, but consider finding money to pay for these lunches. And I know we be the leader of that. No other school does it. I don't think there's anything wrong sometimes with, taking the lead on one of those initiatives. I think we know that a large percentage of our populated, our kids live in poverty, and I can let this go. But on the record, I wish we could spend some time. I don't think $100,000. That's when you can nickel and dime to find the money to do something like this. But if it's time for me to let that go, I will let it go. But that's just how I feel, Karen. Thanks.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
The only comment I would make, Dave.
Are there any grants or things like that we can get to help with that?
I guess my only thing is the kids in poverty at Fairview have the same rights as every other student, which is to apply for free and reduced lunch, which they are highly encouraged. Celeste works with families all the time around that. And I also know, if there's a family struggling, we work with payment plans. I mean, the only thing I could put out there, and Adam and I can talk about this, is do you want to pay the debt for these families? So you put $10,000 in for the elementary debt or $10,000 for the school debt. And then at the end of the year, you pay everyone's bills off. Rather than $100,000, where we're going to have to probably cut in other areas that I would not recommend to cover what some paid. There's some folks at Fairview that choose not to pay for their lunch, but could pay for their lunch. And then there are the families, and Celeste knows who they are, that, they're on the cusp, just like at other schools, at East Auburn, and they're on the cusp of that. So I think it's a lot to ask to put $100,000 in, but you could say, well, why don't we pay the debt off at the end of the school year, and we put in $10,000 to pay the debt.
That sounds great.
Okay.
So we can look at that for next week. Is could we come up with $10,000 to add to help with the lunch debt?
My other thing too is when we had talked about food, and the papers they have to fill out. And in elementary school, the kids are eating, it seems like, and they're filling out the papers. But when they get to high school, there's the stigma about it. And so I feel like the high school, we're losing kids as we go higher. And so is there, lumping that into this paying off their debt and paying for them too, because we know the kids are that are in elementary, and then as they go to high school, we're not getting papers back, but we know who these kids are. So can we continue to help with those kids as well?
The 10,000 would cover all the schools.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
The other thing with that, just so that you're all familiar with the paperwork that's filled out for free and reduced, but we do work with our food services director works with DHHS on those people who qualify for assistance through DHHS, and they're what we refer to as a direct approved. So they're approved because they already demonstrated that they meet the threshold through DHHS. So they would not have to fill out the paperwork.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah, good.
So the next step is we either, you accept where we are right now and we bring it to public hearing. The city council is meeting on Monday, correct, Brian? So if he has a direction, we have another workshop scheduled for next Wednesday from 6 to 7. So we can bring back some of these items next week, like the iPad lease information, the $10,000 for the food. Those were the two that I had written down. And if Brian has more direction from his next meeting, those things. And if there's any other further questions as we come into next Wednesday, just send them our way and we'll do what we did this week.
I have a couple of things that I'd like to add. I added in the chat and it seems to have breezed past. But that's okay. Can we use general fund to cover the lunch debt?
Not only can we, but we have to. So if the debt becomes bad debt, for instance, as a student leaves the district owing funds, we have to cover that with general fund. The nutrition program is not allowed to absorb that.
Okay.
So that's what the 10,000 is that we is.
So it just becomes a budget line versus getting it accepted anyway. Okay. And then can we figure out what sort of impact? So what total district wide to offer free lunch? What was the cost? You said 250,000?
100,000.
No, that was just for elementary, right?
Mm-hmm. 200,000 would also cover the middle school and the high school.
So 200 total.
Estimate we got from the food service director. 200 total.
What if we added that into the budget? What would what would it increase the local to? Like by how much per? Do you know what I mean?
Probably 1 point, right?
This is my thought though. If you're asking me would I do that over interventionists at buildings, I wouldn't. I think you're now saying I'm going to put $200,000 in to have everyone be free. I mean maybe I'm wrong on that.
I don't know. I mean, I definitely see both sides of it. I see the community, wanting to support that, but then I see like teachers and administrators, and I mean, I know I'm directly impacted by this, wanting the extra positions in the classroom for support. So like, I can see both sides.
Right. Me too. I can see both sides.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to necessarily get the community to see, the need of the interventionists. And this is why our taxes are going up. And this is why, it's not just, the school is getting $200,000 extra.
I think people are they're aware that, well, I know I've had some emails from constituents saying that they're okay with, as far as staffing and teachers, and if their taxes go up because of that, they want people in the classrooms and stuff. So that was my concern too when I saw the positions. I just wanted to make sure that we had people in the classrooms because they're the ones that, they've got the boots on the ground. And so that was that was the one concern I had. I just didn't want to lose those kind of positions because I think they're really important.
So what is the total cost of just the positions?
The new positions?
Yes.
What do you?
Just the positions that we have put in the budget and now we're taking out.
The total was $504,000. We took out 400,
which was like 2.5%.
Yeah.
And then, so for each percent, what does it include, or what does it raise the local for? So what I'm saying is, if we, have that $500,000, how much in taxes is that actually going to raise?
Adam's working on it right now.
So what we saw the other night was that 200,000 was about 1%. So 500,000 would be 2.5% to the local. But I think we have to keep in mind here that we've essentially been asked to meet a firm limit. And so, if we added 200, I think, at least as things stand now, we'd probably need to find an offsetting 200.
Okay.
So I don't think it's about what would it do to the local.
I guess my thing is saying, okay, this is our budget. Like right now, go in, hand it. But we'd really like to specifically use the increase above and beyond this budget for these positions. So the city can understand that it's employees that we're adding in positions that are directly impacting students. And the community begins to understand that, again, it's that classroom support, like Pam was saying. People are okay with hiring teachers. So it's just a thought.
Yeah, I'm not sure where to go. Honestly, I'm not sure where to go with that thought, Rose, because I'm just going to keep coming back to, we were given a directive with a specific number. And so where then do you...
I guess for me, it's hard because I want to push back about, this budget and this increase. Like, I'm not just going to say, okay, it's a negotiation. We're working together. They need to see the value of the dollars that we're bringing into this. We've cut a bunch of things out of this that are very necessary, but we're foregoing that. And the increases that we do want to add are positions to help support the classroom. And I think that the city council needs to also understand what those purposes are. Not just, this is an ed tech, these are 4 ed tech positions. No, they're specifically used for this purpose, and this is what they will be.
And listen, Rose, you're speaking to the choir.
Yeah, I'm like, I hear you, Rose. You're talking to the wrong people. I mean, I'll
tell you what city council, because
it's my first time to this, too.
It is your first time. Okay. This is my 9th budget, and Faith has lived it. Dan Poussin has lived it. Their argument will be, you're adding positions, which is now a cost that we have to support every single year.
And
that will be the argument.
And they'll push back with, over the last couple of years, our student enrollment has not increased. So because our student enrollment has not taken big jumps and increases, and you want to add positions, like I said, like Katie said, you're preaching to the choir. You absolutely are.
Isn't there going to be, though, an increase in the kindergarten next year coming up? Katie, you're on mute.
Hey, we can read lips. Oh, sorry, is what she just said. A new skill I just picked up.
Well, I'm glad I didn't swear. Here is the class size projections.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I remembered seeing that.
Remember that? And I think it's in your book.
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah, we do.
And numbers change. So
right.
Yeah.
And Rose, kudos for you, because I know every budget, it's, I trust our administrators. I trust Katie. I trust Adam. We're not asking for extras, but we constantly hear the community coming to us saying, our test scores aren't this, our test scores aren't that, this isn't that. Well, how, in my opinion, how are we going to get there if we're not getting the basic support that our teachers are asking for? Yeah. We're not spending even close to what the schools are being compared to for the amount per year per pupil, per pupil. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure every budget I'm not okay. I always say, hey, can't hurt to ask.
Yeah.
And it's not, we're not asking for, wants, it's needs. Yeah. Like I texted you, do you mean the teachers need support in the classrooms?
Yeah.
Their classroom numbers are still high. They need support, and we're not going to get where the community wants us to be without the support.
Absolutely.
So I'm always saying it can't hurt to ask, but I know,
I'll be that squeaky wheel.
No. Yeah. So keep being it, because the community needs to know that we are asking for essentials. We're not asking for above and beyond. And the administrators, Katie, Adam, everybody always does a great job at, getting to that number where city council holds us accountable for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. At what point will they, what's the number that they will say?
And I hate feeling like I'm at the mercy of somebody, right? We're at the mercy of the state. We're at the mercy of the city council. What point can we, work together? That's part of this whole thing, was working together and trying to make a plan together. Having somebody just tell us a number. Ugh.
Imagine that.
I give up.
I'm going to say.
Sorry. You think I'm crazy now.
For years, I've advocated for the school committee and the budgets as a parent. I have been to numerous city council meetings when the budget came out and advocated. So believe me, I get your frustration. It is frustrating. And being on the other side now is really difficult in looking at different things and, trying to fit that square, that circle into square peg and what they want us to do. And
there's only so much pie, guys.
I know. I've done this for years as far as advocating as a parent.
And then isn't it fun being on this side, Pam?
Well, it's not easy trying to find cuts. That's why I'm looking at the COVID-19 thing, trying to find as much money as we can in that.
You guys think this is fun? Think about doing this for every department in the city.
Right.
I'm sorry. And it's no personal, it's nothing against you specifically or any member of the city
council. That's okay, Rose. No cookies for you.
Right. I mean, this is when I put it on mute and go. Sorry, I think I'm losing track.
All right. So then what's the directive to? I was going to say, then what's the directive? Is it put another 200,000 in there, but for what? For positions or for food?
For me, if we're putting $200,000 back in, I agree with Katie. It's got to be for positions.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in the Fairview district and I don't get free or reduced lunch, and I would feel completely and utterly selfish by taking free lunch. I think it's a great, people who it's available to have that option. And I think it's great that we do that. But I think if we're comparing giving people who probably could and should pay for their kids' lunch if they have it versus putting in positions, I'm totally a fan of putting the positions in first.
Okay.
I agree.
And right. Pam, I just will say, because Pam, I know you said something about, a lot of, and maybe I misheard you, but that the elementary students, they fill out the papers. There's a lot of parents that qualify that do not fill out the papers for free and reduced lunch that qualify. And then there's a lot of parents in the districts that aren't free and reduced that they can afford to pay for their kids' lunches, but they don't because they know they don't have to. So I completely agree with Brian that I'd rather see that money go towards ed techs and teacher support than paying off people's lunches that they are well and able to pay their lunch bills and they just don't because they know we can't hold them to it.
So Katie,
I agree.
Katie, can you go back to, Katie, go back to the new positions sheet, please.
Okay, I just want to remind folks.
Yeah.
Because this is new to everyone. This budget must get through city council.
Yeah.
And then must be approved by the public. And we're not sure even when that's going to happen with the COVID-19. So we're at 48 cents, correct, Adam?
Yeah.
Correct me. 48 cents to the mill rate right now. And the city budget has not come in yet. And I know even if they push the city to come in with zero increase to the mill rate, that's going to be a challenge. Okay, that's not going to be an easy feat for them. But maybe I'm wrong. But I just think we have to be realistic. I don't mind putting the 200, back in. I've lived this, and it's not just about what we want and we get it approved. If the city council does not support the budget, it will not be supported all the way through. And so we need to work collaboratively to show them that we hear them and they hear us. So we haven't had to cut. We only cut really one major position, in my opinion, the instructional coach. You're getting a really maintenance budget. And I should be saying to you, put every budget in. But I know reality is we're going to be back here having the same discussion in 2 weeks.
After city council, because it was non-binding.
When Brian brings it on Monday that we just added $200,000, he's going to be back saying to us, that's not going to ever fly and it's not going to pass.
I'd say he's very persuasive, though. I got a feeling.
I don't have that many cookies in the.
You made cookies. Come on. You hit the number, Katie, and I agree with everyone else. It'd be great to bring on all the new positions and everything else. You've hit the number, and I think it'd be futile to add to it at this point. Especially it was a hard. Mayor Levesque kind of made it clear where he wanted to be. That's just my 2 cents.
Thanks, Dave. I think that's that. I think we were given a number. I'm going to have to agree with Katie on this one. That I don't want to ask. I do want to ask for more. However, I think it does show that we're working collaboratively by presenting something that they have non-bindingly mandated us to kind of come in at. So
that's not super collaborative in my mind.
Well,
if somebody's like, you have $5 to spend it however way you want to.
But it could have been worse. I mean, I think they gave us some room. I mean, they're allowing us to increase, which is for the. Last year it was 0% or lower.
Right.
And actually, I think it was even supposed to be lower than 0%. So I think the fact that they're even allowing us having an increase, I think, is actually a collaboration piece. I come
in with doe eyes and happy, like let's
you have the reality. Yeah, it's the reality of it's the reality, and I think we want to continue the relation. Continue building upon the relationships that we have started to build upon, and I want to keep those going, and so. Unfortunately, this is just the way this works. This is the way the system works, and we've got to play within the rules. And that's where I'm coming from.
I think you're going to be. I think we're going to be in a better position coming in at this point with what they've asked us to do. What I've asked you. We've all asked you to do. I'm not going to give you any guarantees because, again, I don't speak for everybody on the council, but I feel better going in and saying, look, this is what you gave us. This is what we came back at. We may be back here again in 2 weeks with, if they make a decision that says, that's still a little too much. But I feel better doing it this way and finding money later on for the lunch program and then trying to sell it up front.
Okay. So Katie, what are next? I think, I hope everybody feels like they were able to make their points, that they, got their thoughts across, and now I think it's time to hear what are next steps at this point. You had started to say that a few minutes ago, Katie.
So next week you have an hour workshop again. So we're going to look at a couple things, those lease payments. We're going to look at the $10,000 to be added to help with the debt at our schools, our 4 other schools. And then anything you think of from here on, try to get to us by Tuesday so that we can have time to respond and get organized to give you what you need for your decisions. Brian will have more direction. So I'm sure Brian will be in contact maybe Tuesday to say this is what happened at City Council last night. We probably will need to be in the audience if that's going to be a discussion point. So more to come.
Okay. All right.
Not so the audience, I guess not the audience.
Not the audience. Like you mean the audience from your laptop?
I'll be texting Brian while I watch it.
All right. So at this point, we do need to open. So I think discussion. I think we're going in with what City Council's asked us to do. And at this point, we're going to open up to public participation. So it has been streaming live I believe on YouTube. And so Katie, if you want to share the phone number, and you have a phone ready to go. Do you have the phone number?
Yeah,
I do.
This phone number is 784-6431, extension 1326.
Okay, we'll wait a couple of minutes. Go ahead and I would repeat it because
784-6431, extension 1326. And I'm glad to see members aren't calling. That's excellent.
Got my phone in my hand.
I feel like we're on the Channel 10 auction way back.
That's what I said to her. I said, it's like the Jerry Lewis telethon. When she told me that this is what was going to happen, I'm like, oh my God, it's like the Jerry Lewis telethon on Labor Day weekend. And yes. Okay, fabulous. Thank you.
And people should know, if you don't call or you attempt to call and can't get through, please send us all emails and we'll try to have information for the next meeting.
I'm just looking at what time it is. So I'm going to give, a couple minutes, give about 5 minutes or so. And if we haven't heard it from anyone, then I think we're going to be okay to close out the workshop.
Should we do a dance party in the meantime?
Oh, you start it.
TikTok, anybody?
Yeah.
TikTok.
So, Faith, you're in the wrong room of your house to start a dance party, though.
How do you know what room I'm in?
Well, you're not in your kitchen. You're not in your kitchen. I don't think you're in your kitchen.
She's in a closet hiding.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, this is great. My husband had to make dinner. But it's not ready yet.
I'm going to show you. Mine's been sitting here waiting for me to dig into it. Sweet potato, chicken, asparagus, rice. My husband delivered it at probably about half an hour ago.
That's the chicken he was pounding earlier.
Yeah, that's the chicken he was pounding in the last meeting. Yes, that's
exactly.
It's now sitting there ready to go. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, ready to go.
And I didn't mean to quit earlier on I texted you, Karen. I'm like, I didn't just rage quit. My internet cut out and I'm like, oh my God, I was in the middle of talk. They're going to think that I'm just like, okay, guys, like
I haven't read it.
That wasn't the case. I swear.
No, I haven't read any of them. There's like 27 text messages there. I haven't read any of them. So I'll just ignore that one when I go through
one
with
of them. Whatever, guys.
Oh, that's
seeing good. No one coming to the mic?
No one
come to the mic.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. I'll second it.
I think we're good. We don't need to. Bye. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. I'm going to go eat dinner. Bye.
Bye.